I'm ProzaicMuze here with an update on my plans for the next round of Diablo guides and upcoming Path of Exile content. You might be wondering what you're looking at, but on the Battle.net forums, someone asked where patch 1.07 was. Here, Veneris indicates that a release date is still tentative. Given Blizzard's track record, I'm going to assume that it won't land this coming Tuesday, rather the following week. As a result, I won't be releasing any guides until after the patch hits, as the viability of several of them hinges on what changes make it through. Rather than leave it at that, the rest of this video will serve as a preview for the next 4 guides I'm planning on making, upcoming Path of Exile content, and other plans I have for the channel. So for those of you that have already watched the Thunderstrike Barbarian guide, you probably already know that this first build is for the multi-strafe Demon Hunter. It's designed for versatility in the lower monster power levels and affords you the option of ranged, mobile, or melee combat as needed. Multi-shot is ruined with suppression fire to generate 1 discipline per target hit, and Night Stalker doubles up on crits. By using preparation with punishment and max discipline gear with hatred generation, you can use multi-shot and strafe for very long periods of time. Multi-shot handles large groups of trash, strafe lets you move through them whether to clump or ignore them, and impale covers cheap single target burst damage. The patch will be taking snapshotting from monks, and whether or not this will include demon hunters is unclear. Currently you can cast shadow power before starting strafe to lock in the lifesteal until you are interrupted or switch abilities. Another popular option is to use shock room with shuriken cloud for 2 minutes of free AoE lifesteal. Removing this combination wouldn't break the build outright, but it will remove a number of options from the build. The next build for the monk uses Mantra of Evasion with Backlash for damage that scales based on the number of monsters attacking you. While I am using mostly dodge abilities and runes, you can easily work in Sweeping Winds for a more familiar playstyle. The point of the build is to pull nearby monsters to you with Cyclone Strike. This both puts them in range to attack you and be struck by the AoE explosions triggered by dodging attacks. Currently there is no limit on the number of targets you can pull, but the patch will cap this at 8 and slow the build down considerably. Enough so that I probably wouldn't play it anymore. Should the change stick, I'll skip to the next monk build on the list featuring Exploding Palm with Essence Burn. By using the fire skill boosting weapons Maximus and Burning Axe of Sandkiss, you enjoy a very tanky playstyle without needing to stack health or sacrifice damage. The dot from Essence Burn can spread after the first application, allowing you to focus on meteor targets while bodies explode in fiery bits around you. Using Maximus typically deals more damage with burst healing, while dual wielding provides more spirit for managing abilities. The Witch Doctor build also uses Maximus to take advantage of the abundance of fire-based abilities with a strong emphasis on damage output. I chose to use Fire Bats with Cloud of Bats for a playstyle similar to the Sleet Storm Wizard, but several key differences make this build feel faster by comparison. First, your demon and zombie dog companions will provide a much more active environment to engage in. Acting both as distractions and additional sources of damage, you're usually free to spread locusts, throw down Firebomb with Pyrogeist, and position yourself to channel Cloud of Bats. One awkward part of the build is that you deal more damage the longer you channel up to double damage, but you have to wait a full 5 seconds to achieve the maximum effect. Melee packs are a breeze, while range packs force you to accept the lower damage value. Thankfully, you have many options for dealing with runners. The one thing to look forward to from the patch with this build is the change to pets reflecting damage and a periodic duration. Right now, your pets can do a surprising amount of damage to you while you're positioning yourself to channel. I've never outright died from Reflect, but the damage put me in a place that normal attacks or other affixes finished me off. The last build of the batch is the Forked Lightning Wizard. It uses many of the lightning abilities in conjunction with Blizzard for the slow and damage boost, something desperately needed by lightning in general. Lightning Hydra has the strongest single target damage of the Hydra runes and serves as an important part in focusing down single targets that Forked Lightning is poorly suited to handle. The patch looks to buff Blizzard and Shock Pulse, something I've used from time to time, but which could see more frequent use after being buffed. Teleport can support either a somewhat tanky approach, as I prefer, or combine with the passive Illusionist for kiting. With the appropriate amount of health, you can use Diamond Skin to purposely take a hit and skip over a pack to the other side. Once there, drop another Blizzard and continue spamming until dead. Assuming the patch is released sometimes this month, I'll put out at least a pair of builds a week to make up for the delay and return to the normal 1-a-week schedule. Also, I've been exploring various duo guides with party play in mind. Builds similar to the Cyclone Strike Monk and Critical Mass Wizards that you might have experienced yourself. Leave a comment or post letting me know what you think about this idea. I'd probably release a party guide every other week in addition to the solo guides. With Diablo business taken care of, let's talk about Path of Exile. I will be making a Getting Started series of guides for those interested in learning more about this very technical game. First, I just want to say that I was pleasantly surprised by this game. For those of you who remember my opinion from earlier last year, I wasn't exactly looking forward to the level of complexity it was touting, despite being exactly the kind of person who should enjoy it. There are aspects I'm not pleased with, but I found it simple to manage once you understand the patterns and intended methods of progression. The first major guide, or rather collection of guides, for the series will be class guides. They will cover what each class is positioned on the passive tree to do, various skills, equipment, and weapons associated with them, and a few of the popular builds recommended for those new to the game or class. Later, after completing the rest of the series, I'll show off some of my own builds. As you can probably already guess, I'm going to be doing the exact opposite of what each class was intended for. What I can tell you right now though, is while the kind of builds I enjoy are possible, they require a solid understanding of the game and considerable overgearing in the early levels so that you can reach the point where they catch up to what the class was designed for. I strongly recommend that your first character be something cookie cutter to learn the game, then play your more creative builds after that. You do have 20 character slots or more after all. The next segment of this series will cover combat and how to survive it. One major factor in the game is the intentional difficulty. You will die all the time if you don't adhere to at least a few unavoidable rules. They're easy to follow without ruining your plan to be the perfect snowflake, but aren't immediately obvious. I won't be covering hardcore, given that I want to wait until some of the server issues of open beta are resolved and other leagues, which are similar to Diablo 2's ladder system, get released. I'll eventually expand this guide when that happens. The next logical step is, of course, fat loots. After leveling up 12 characters in rapid succession, I've picked up on certain areas ideal for leveling and farming. This differs from build to build, but I'll be sure to explain these differences. There is also a somewhat hidden pre-crafting system with regards to picking up items you wouldn't expect are worth anything to create crafting materials. I will be covering this extensively. Of course, once the spice flows, you need something to do with it, so I'll follow with a crafting guide. Path of Exile doesn't use gold and opts instead for a bartering system driven by currency use both to trade with NPCs and upgrade your items. You can, of course, trade with real people as well, but the focus of this segment is to cover all of the ways you can turn average items into amazing items worth wearing. The last guide in the Getting Started series will cover the current endgame, specifically cruel and merciless difficulties with the dungeon map system that follows. It is quite similar to the endgame system for Torchlight 2 if you're familiar with it, but uses the crafting system to alter maps in the same way you would an item. I'm currently at the point where I have my first map, but need to farm enough maps to chain multiple dungeons together without stopping to farm more. Think of it like a startup cost to ensure that you can permanently move to dungeon maps. Depending on how long it takes for the RNG gods to bless me with the required materials, I might release this apart from the rest of the series. I haven't done any PvP yet, but I will eventually offer myself up to the slaughter in the name of science. In the meantime, let me know if you're interested in Path of Exile and what kinds of things you'd like to see from me regarding channel content. Until then, be sure to like, favorite, comment, subscribe, and all those other things that make me feel better about myself.